Hello, everyone. I'm so glad you could join us today as we welcome best-selling author Elizabeth Berg. We have been fortunate enough to host Elizabeth in our library twice before, but now we're doing it a little differently. Elizabeth, even though we can't feed you pie, we are thrilled to meet with you any way we can. Everyone, please join me in welcoming Elizabeth Berg.
Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. I want to tell you about this new book, but I want to tell you first that when Bill and I came to your library, we had set up a library tour, and you never know how these things are going to go. And we were so, it's a tired phrase, but absolutely true. We were so blown away by your hospitality and how beautifully you set up and how friendly the people were. I mean, it's one of my favorite memories ever. I still remember so much about it, and I'm still grateful. So thank you for taking a chance and accommodating us. And I think I brought my dog too, didn't I?
Yeah.
Did I bring Gabby? Yeah, I should have brought her here today.
And Homer too, right?
Yeah.
You had Homer the first time.
Homer was the first.
Did he have his cone of shame on and his dressing and all that?
He had dressing on his little foot.
Yeah.
He was sad.
Homer, what a great dog. He was a rescue. I got him when he was a year old, and he had been so abused. He was a holy terror. He bit. Goldens never bite, but he bit. And it took a while to settle him down. But he became the most wonderful dog, and he died on his 14th birthday in my
Good long life.
Yeah.
It's a good long life.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really did. And some of you may be familiar with the Facebook posting book that I did. In fact, that's what I brought when I came to the library. And one of them, maybe I came to you guys with that. Was it Still Happy, about where Homer's life is in there? This book. Still Happy. Anyway, it includes the story of Homer. So his whole life is in there.
Very nice.
So now I have a dog that weighs about 90 pounds, and he's not done yet. How'd that happen? Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry. That was my fault.
Something I said, I don't know. Okay, so
I'm so sorry.
No problem. I'd love to talk to you about the new book that's coming out in just 2 weeks. Well, it will be out by the time other people see this. I wanted to help myself at a time I was going through a really hard time, which had to do with my parents going through that hardest of transitions, which is having to leave their home where they'd been for so long to go to another place where there could be more help. My dad, Alzheimer's, and my mom she couldn't manage by herself anymore. So it was, excuse me, it was a real roller coaster ride where sometimes there would be humor and a great deal of love. Sometimes there'd be really terrible arguments. There was a lot of going back and forth. I think the thing that was hardest for me was, first my dad wanted to move somewhere else, but my mother didn't. Then my mother wanted to move somewhere else, and my dad didn't. After they finally both agreed, my mom just turned into a different person, hated it there. And my sister and I were trying to navigate these sort of choppy waters. My sister more than I, because she lived in Minnesota where they did. So as this was all happening, as a writer, the way that I come to terms with things or understand things is to write about them. Came to the notion of publishing memoir, I had some second thoughts of it's intensely personal. There's a lot of stuff in there I'm not proud of, but I thought it was important to be really honest and to share with other people what this was like for me and my family in the hope that it could help others. Judging from the response I've had to this book so far, it really has done that. Before I published it, I sent the manuscript to my sister, and I told her, if there is anything in here that you object to, if there's anything that you want me to take out, if you would in fact prefer that I not publish this, I won't do it. And when she was reading it, I was preparing myself to it wouldn't have killed me if she said, no, don't publish this, but it would have killed me if she said, how can you say this? So I was nervously waiting, and I got an email from her with 2 words in all caps: publish this. So that, I get chills saying that. That was so important to me, and so I did. I wanted to read you just the slightest bit from here. It's a part that takes place toward the end of the book, but it won't ruin it for you. And the reason for that is whenever I hear about a book, and the author can say whatever he or she wants about it, and I'll listen, but in the end, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, well, I'll be the judge of that. Let me just have a little look at this, and then we'll see. So I'm going to give you the tiny example, which occurs near the end of the book. I have a friend whose elderly mother lives with her and is driving her crazy. Her mother was once a talented artist, an intellectual with myriad interests. Now, my friend says, she gets up in the morning and makes a cup of coffee, and she's so slow doing it. I mean, I just watch her sometimes to see how she can possibly be so slow. Then she sits at the kitchen table and talks about what might be for lunch. I just can't stand it. All she talks about is her cup of coffee in the morning and the weather and what her next meal will be. I really wonder, is there any meaning to the end of life? I suppose one way to answer that question is to think about how a baby's meaning in life is a ray of sunshine, the color red, the nearness of his mother's flesh. For a teenager, it is music, fitting in, hormone management. In midlife, meaning comes from focusing on our families, our jobs, our involvement with the world outside our kitchens, which is to say that the meaning of life is ever changing, even as we are. Who's to say that the richest time of life might not be when a cup of morning coffee fills the world? If you found a holy man hidden away on a mountain who found fulfillment in such seemingly simple things, would you not admire him? It is a very warm summer morning, and my parents are both alive and employed. They are still capable of enjoying a slice of apple pie and of having a conversation. They are living together in what will probably be the last home they will ever share. Imagine them at the kitchen table. My mother will serve breakfast on the embroidered tablecloth. The day will pass. Laundry will be done. The mail will be gotten. The phone will be answered. Someone may drop by for a visit. In the evening, the television will be on, and they will sit watching their shows. They will go to bed together. My father has never and will not now go to bed without my mother. And while the moon follows an ancient path across the night sky, they will lie next to each other with their eyes closed. In the morning, the first thing they see will be each other. So there's your sample Andy. What else? I guess one of the parts that I like best in this book is when my mother, my sister, and I brought my dad to the VA to be tested. And my dad was a lifer in the Army. He was terrifying. When I went out with boys, he would never smile. He wouldn't talk to them. And inevitably, whenever I got in the car, with the guy to go to wherever we were going, the guy would say, "Man, your dad is mean." And he really did scare a lot of people, including the kids in the family. So to see such a terrifying presence, really, such formidable presence, brought to a place where he was given a test, the famous test. I'm going to give you 3 words. I want you to repeat them back, and then I'm going to ask you later what they are. In this case, it was finger, village, and heaven. And for him not to be able to do that, nor for him to be able to talk about some of the extraordinary current events that were going on at the time, Libya, the tsunami in Japan, was hard for us. In some ways, I think it was harder for us than it was for him. He had grown quite mellow and amenable. They would say, "Okay, can you do a running stitch on this card?" And he'd say, "Okay." And my heart's breaking, But the best part of that day was they did a number of tests, and when he had concluded the tests, the person administering them said, "Okay, well, let's see what your score is. Now, in this part, you got 4 out of 5. Next part, you got 3 out of 5. Here, you got 2 out of 5, and so on." And I guess there were 5 or 6 different categories. When she had finished announcing what his score in each part was, she wanted to then give him a single score, an average. So she pulls out her calculator, and my dad says 4.5 with nothing, he just knew. And he was right. And she said, "You're good at this." And it was such a moment of triumph. Those little things that bolster you and sustain you and make you proud, and what he could still do, and the kind of humor that showed up. For example, my parents, when they went back and forth for a long time about whether they wanted to sell their house, even after they moved to the place where they ended up living. But they were talking about it once, and they were thinking, how are we going to get the money to pay for this place? And I said, well, for one thing, your house is worth $200,000. And my dad kind of scoffed, and he asked my mother, "What do we pay for this place?" And she said, $22,000. And he said, "Well, we're not going to get much more than $24,000 for it." And I said, "Can I buy it?" So my dad was riding with me in the car one day, and he said, I think this sort of summed it up for him. He said, "I just feel like I'm in a fog." And that was a moment when he had an awareness of his unawareness. But for the most part, he just kind of went along with things. For my mother, she was furious. For the longest time, she hated the place she was living. She hated that she was losing her husband. When your heart is breaking, when you're feeling so much, oftentimes the venue for you to get that out is anger and lashing out at others. So my sister and I bore the brunt of that for a long time. And then we had this horrible fight with her. My partner, Bill, had come with me to Minnesota. He was with my dad in the kitchen. They were having a pleasant conversation. My mother and my sister and I were screaming at each other in the back room. This is one of the things I'm most ashamed of and regret, but it happened. And I documented it because I wanted people to know that probably if you go through this, that's going to happen to you. You're going to do things that you regret. You're going to do things that you wish you had done differently. It was my daughter saying to me, can I just offer one word of criticism? You have to let Grandma come to things in her own way, in her own time. Because I was pushing so hard, sometimes inadvertently, but pushing so hard for her to do things she just wasn't ready to do. And they were the smallest things, like my dad wanted to go downstairs to the lobby. They had a big dining room there. He wanted to go once a week and have dinner. And I thought, what is so hard about that? God, just take him to dinner one night a week. But she wasn't ready. She had her own reasons that she finally revealed, namely that she thought he would embarrass her because he wasn't together mentally anymore. And when she finally told me that, I said, but Mom, that's one of the good things about being here. Everybody's got a problem of some kind or another, or they wouldn't be here. So you find a kind of camaraderie. You can share things with each other. And you forgive things about each other. When I took my dad to bingo, they were playing the T-shape bingo game, and they had put an example of that up at the front of the room. But he had macular degeneration, and he couldn't see that example, and he couldn't hold on to the information that this is what we're doing is a T-shape. When we came into the room, we sat with a couple of women who were not particularly friendly. They were kind of dour personalities, not very chatty, not very welcoming, but so we sat with them. So we're playing bingo, and my dad calls out, bingo! But he'd gotten a straight line across because he hadn't held on to what he was supposed to do. So when it was revealed before everyone that that's what had happened, my dad was really embarrassed. And at that point, the atmosphere in the room seemed to change. And everybody got warmer. And everybody understood how that feels to embarrass yourself in this way. And even the two old cranky ladies with us got really nice. So it's hard, but these supportive things happen that you really treasure and depend upon. So that's what this is. This is it's a diary in a way of my parents' crime, and it doesn't hold back at all with my feelings, my sisters, my brothers, my parents, as insofar as I understood what they were. But the good part is the kind of accommodation and reconciliation they were able to make, all of us were able to make, so that by the time my dad died and then my mom, a lot of work had been done in love and gratitude. So what else? Do you want to move to questions this soon, or?
Sure, are you ready for that? I have a feeling there will be a lot of questions.
And also I want to welcome not only questions, but if you just feel like you want to say something because you've been through an experience like this or anticipate going through an experience like this, or one of the things it made me do was think about, I'm not going backwards in age, and I need to be really honest with my daughters about everything that I can, including what I want done. I want to have a pod burial where I nourish a tree, and I've never told them that because you know how we are. We go, I don't want to talk about that, but I have to talk about it. And just to let you know, by the way, that one of my daughters has read the book, and she sent me a beautiful email about it and said, I wish you had written about her other grandparents. And I said, well, I think, your dad has to do that. I can't do that. So it went well with her. It remains to be seen how the other daughter will take it. Okay.
Well, let's go ahead and open the floor to questions. Just raise your hand when you're ready to ask a question, but we'll go ahead and start with Judy.
She always picks on me first. Well, I can't wait, Elizabeth, to read your book. I get the mail every day, hoping it's going to be here at the library, and we'll have it any day now. But I think it's really going to hit home with me. And in a way, I'm kind of afraid to read it. I took care of my mother for several years before she passed away. Mentally, she was fine, but her body just pretty much broke down. So it was a difficult time to see that progression. So that's a comment I wanted to make, but I wanted to ask you,
Next.
with the pandemic and all of the other things going on right now, I know you from reading your posts that you love to find the little simple things that we can take joy in. But how does it affect your writing process? It affects all of us in our work and our play and everything we do. Is it difficult as a creative person?
Yes, no. For one thing, I find it a great deal of relief in writing, so I try to keep on going, even though it seems unimportant, doesn't it? You know, it seems like we are obliged to be continually attentive and responsible and working in whatever way we can on this problem. But you know, I've learned that you have to give yourself a break. And in fact, most of the time when I do Zoom events, I say, here's what we're going to do. We're going to compartmentalize. We're not going to talk about politics. We're not going to talk about the pandemic. We're going to give ourselves one place. You know, it's not an easy book, but it's a rich book, and I feel it's an important book because I think that one of the things that helped me most in going through this was to hear other people's stories, and they're all the same and they're all different. They're all markedly different, and it just helps to hear somebody else's story. To your question, it really is yes and no. I still go to my writers group via Zoom. Sometimes I have material, sometimes I don't. But I listen with great pleasure to what the other women bring. One of them is a poet, and I love poetry. In fact, two of them are poets. One of them is strictly a poet, and the other one writes poetry, fiction and nonfiction. And she teaches poetry. So I'm going to take a class in writing spiritual poetry. And I can't wait. Her name is Donna Stein, by the way, if anybody wants to look her up, Donna Stein. And she wrote a wonderful book called The Silver Baron's Wife. Really good book. If you like historical fiction based on true stories, this is about a woman who married a silver baron, and they were so loaded, her diaper pants had diamonds on them, and at the end of her life she ended up living in a one-room shack, hallucinating, having spiritual hallucinations. Fascinating story. So she's one of the people in my writers group. So I do that, and I am so grateful that I can read, because some people have told me they have a lot of trouble reading now. Thank God I can read, because I can escape, you know. I just get deeper into the material, and it's such a relief, and it's like your brain gets a massage.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Judy. We'll go ahead and go to Heidi.
Hi, I'm not Mike, I'm Heidi.
Hi.
I just can't wait to read your book. Both my husband's parents and my parents have gone through what you're talking about. I would say we learned a lot going through it with my husband's parents. And then my dad passed away immediately after they did, the same year. They all passed away within 8 months, I think.
Oh man.
But they'd had good long lives. They were all 86 when they died, and physically and mentally, they were at the end of their lives, and it was not a horrible thing at all. It was a good thing. I'm going through the whole process is not easy, but I can't say it was a horrible thing, you know. But now my mom then, within a couple of years, started dementia. And amazingly, she's 88 and living in memory care. And I can say because she's in a small town area, the memory care is wonderful. Those LPNs and nurses and social workers are fabulous. When she's making a decision and we're helping her make the decision that it's time to leave her home because it's not safe, that's the horrible time, because she wouldn't remember the things that she had said the day before about being ready to go. So that makes it tough. And she'd always told us she didn't want to live with any of us. And thank goodness she didn't, because we're talking 4 years now.
Yeah.
You know, and at the time she was here for 1 week, and I thought my husband and I were going to pull her hair out. He had to stay nearby because she treated me like a little child in kind of a mean, nasty way. And if he wasn't nearby, it was worse. So there is no way she could have been in our house.
Right. Right.
The thing that made this good is I have 3 sisters and a brother. And you'd think that would make it hard. But what made that better than people who just have one child is when it got hard, you could talk about it and laugh, because we all know Mom, and we all know where we're all coming from. And if it got too hard for one, the others were very encouraging, even if they lived far away. We didn't have any of that. No, you have to live with Mom. No, you have to do this. No, it was just amazingly wonderful. And now that she's kind of in the later stages of dementia, they're not in a bed anymore. They're still out and about. They still have activities. We can visit her. My sister lives close by. It's not horrible. Like, people are afraid to go into a memory care unit. And I think as much value as any is when my sister and brother and I go into that unit, we know all the people. Now, they might not remember us from time to time, but we know their names and we can joke around with them. So it's a family thing. And when one of them dies, we know the families. And it's kind of an amazing thing. You know, it's not at this point a negative thing. And to hear that this is what this book is about is really pretty amazing, because I did not know that. Is that why you asked me, Perry?
No.
No.
No, we just thought you'd enjoy it because you had read Elizabeth's other book.
So thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you for sharing that. I know
And they had COVID, and she had COVID. She had a fever. She was flushed and lost a little bit of appetite, and I don't know about smell, but she got over it, and so did most of the people on her hall, I think. I don't think anybody actually passed away from COVID. Of course, we thought when they told us she had it, we figured that was the end. No, it wasn't even that serious. So not every nursing home has to, and they're very careful. You know, we had to visit outside, and then outside her room, now outside until it got cold. You know, they have a lot of protocols, but
yeah,
it's interesting.
We're listening to you. It's like it reminds me of I recorded this book, and because of concerns about going up an elevator into a small studio for many hours and so on, I was lucky enough that I could do it here. My son-in-law is a sound engineer, and he made the coolest little studio in my library. My library is a tiny little room, and he put the blankets up all over and the microphones and all that. So he was there being the sound engineer, and then remotely there was someone on the West Coast who was serving as a kind of director. And so we're all listening to this book as I read it aloud. And at one point, the guy on the West Coast said, this is like group therapy. and, and it is. So I think that talking about a difficult personal thing elicits stories. You know, it's kind of a permission giving advice or a device, and solicits stories from other people about their own hard stuff. So you know what? I hope it does serve to spark that, to maybe even have people start a support group about issues of aging, not just Alzheimer's, but issues of aging. How do you best want to do that? And you can learn from other people's, i.e. my mistakes, and that's a good thing, and that can happen.
Laura, you're next.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi, Laura.
Nice to see you again. I saw you when you came to the library the last time, so I'm so excited to be here. And I didn't know that your memoir was about this either. My aunt passed away 3 days ago, actually, and she had dementia. And she was that aunt, kind of reminds me of your dad. She was the fun aunt that you'd ask, oh, I'm so hungry, and she'd go out and get you a pizza. You know, that aunt. She was water skiing. She was full of life. So I didn't see her a lot these last few years, but she was my dad's older sister. And like I said, she passed away 3 days ago. And just knowing that she's gone, I think has affected my dad. I called him a couple days ago and he said, you know, when your sibling passes away, my dad has a dry sense of humor. He goes, you know, you're old when your sibling passes away. I was like, oh, but I do think that I'm going to get this book for them, for my mom and my dad, so that they can read it, because my dad is kind of an introvert and he processes things internally. And I think that it would be nice for him and my mother to have a copy of this, because I don't know, he's struggling internally, but I know for me as her niece, it's a very strange feeling to have her gone, and it's a very strange feeling to know that at the end she really didn't know who her family members were. So it kind of, it speaks to me too personally. So I appreciate you writing this. And I appreciate that your sister said publish it. That moment gave me a little bit of a tear too when you said that.
Yeah, me too. I don't know. Have you guys been able to see the cover?
I've seen the cover, yeah.
Can you
Is that your parents?
That's my parents.
Yeah.
And so I think for many of us, we hold the image of these people in our hearts and heads like that, you know.
Yeah.
And so it's heartbreaking in this of ways to see them like that and know this long life that they had. I mean, as some of you have said, the good news is my dad was 90. But I think that there's, again, a lesson in that the way our brain works seems to be that we hold on to the present and oftentimes we forget about the past and we forget about the future coming. So I think the more awareness we have about that, the better. It can make life a lot richer if you understand that it really is temporary. We're so good at denying that.
Yes, we are.
It can enrich your life.
I do have a question though too. And my mother wanted me to tell you when she knew I was getting on with you today that she's a big fan and she loves all your books. So, so that's from my mother, Peggy. But I know you said you were able to read during COVID, but I'm a writer too, and I have found it so difficult to write. Were you able to continue your writing were you productive creatively that way have you been during the pandemic?
Not in exactly the same way. I did, I did a book called The Story of Arthur True Love about a little town in Missouri, a fictional town.
Yeah, that's my mom's favorite, that one, sorry.
Favorite of my own novels too. And then I did 2 more, and I wrote a 4th one, and I'm still playing around with it a little, which is uncharacteristic of me. I'm a really fast writer, and it's like a, you know, Lucille Ball's chocolate factory around here, you know, with things just coming down, and so I've slowed down, but because I'm paying a lot of attention to other things. But I think that one of the things that writers need to do is to remember that they're still writers. That if you feel that you can't write right now, there's nothing wrong with that. It's absolutely natural, and you're not going to lose anything. It will come back. And whatever it is that makes you a writer in the first place, that's been in you since you were born, and that's going to stay in you. It can be a very, for people who are writers, it can be a kind of panicky feeling when all of a sudden, uh-oh, it's just not coming, you know.
No, it is a panicky feeling.
Yeah, it is.
It's gone. It's just gone.
Yeah. Now that I know, I've said that too. Well, that's it for me. I'm all washed up. You know. But you need even when it's not extraordinary circumstances like this, you need time to nourish yourself and to fill up the well. So if it were business as usual, life as usual, you would probably still come to some times in your life where not working. And I've written a lot of books, and I've been at this for a long time, and I found that the best thing to do is to go with that feeling of non-production, or whatever you want to call it. And when you relax about that, you know, go make a quilt, go bake a pie, you know, when you relax about it, that's when things start perking up again. Because what a writer does is take in details from all around her, details of her life as she's living it now, memories, things that you see when you take a walk that serve as metaphors for whatever you're writing, or just something that's sleeping in you that wakes up when it gets quiet enough. So have faith, it will come back. And in the meantime, if you can read, do a lot of reading, because you know that can really inspire a lot of ideas too.
Absolutely.
I call Ann Tyler my literary aphrodisiac. I don't know what it is about her, but every time I read her, I start going, oh, I have an idea. So maybe there's an author that will spark that for you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Wonderful. How about Jennifer?
Hello, everybody. Hello, Elizabeth. I just wanted to say how honored I was to be here and to be in your presence and hear your story. And I just wanted to say that every time someone writes a story, you're putting a piece of yourself out there. And most of the time that's fiction. And so I wanted to tell you how proud I was of you for being so brave to put a piece of you out there that's real and like it's a part of your life. So that's not easy to do. So I wanted to tell you how big that was, you know, like how huge that was, and how I think that that's going to be a lot nice to know you're not alone.
I'm sorry, I'm losing you. Are you close to your microphone? Try it again.
Okay.
There you go.
Better?
Yes. So you were saying that when you put a piece of yourself out there, that's the truth, you know, a memoir, not fiction, that it's a big deal. And you're absolutely right. And it makes you really vulnerable.
Yes, and I was just saying that as a writer, you're putting yourself out there, a piece of yourself out there, even when you're writing fiction. And so when you had to write your true story, that was just really brave for you to do that. And I think it will help a lot of people.
I hope so. That's been the response thus far. You know, there's a site you're probably familiar with called Goodreads. You guys know about Goodreads? So if you read the reviews, I'll be seeing you on there. Overwhelmingly, people are glad to have something that puts it all out there, and they do find it helpful. So that's very gratifying. Very gratifying.
And then I did have one more question for you. Next month in November is National Novel Writing Month, NaNoWriMo. And a lot of people take the month of November to try to write 50,000 words. And so my question to you is, what advice do you have for new writers writing their first book?
You know, I'm going to give you a very succinct answer. And this is something I believe with all my heart, which is do not imitate anyone. Your own voice is so unique and valuable and so needed. You've probably had the experience of a reader of reading someone that sort of sounds like someone else, and it's usually a pale imitation. Or even if it's not, it's repetitive. And for me, as a reader, one of the most exciting things is to hear a new voice that's absolutely authentic and a real, no kidding, putting it all out there voice, whether fiction or not. I'll give you an example of something I read recently that's absolutely stunning. It's called Shuggie Bain. Shuggie Bain, B-A-I-N. I read a review of this book early on, and something about the review made me think, oh, I think I'd really like this. I loved it, every single page, and it's a debut novel, and the guy has been nominated for a Booker, and I think now a National Book Award. It's so gratifying when I read a book that I love so much, and then it starts getting all this acclaim. And I do a thing called Writing Matters. We're doing it via Zoom now, but we had him on early. I could never get him on now because he's Mr. Hot Stuff now. But what a sweet man, and so interesting and intelligent and well-spoken and feeling and sharing. You can see it if you go to a 19th century club. It's archived there, and the author's name is Douglas Stewart. But that was a book that just is the perfect example for what I'm talking about, which is to really honor your own voice and your own experience, even in writing fiction. Readers can spot a phony, you know? And it's not only sort of egregious, it's boring. So when you're writing, take risks, tell the truth, even if you're writing fiction, you know, tell the emotional truth, and understand that nobody has to see it. I think a lot of people, when they write, are being the editor, the writer, and the audience all at the same time, and you really do yourself a disservice if you do that. So if you just pretend that you get to say whatever you want, no one's going to see it unless you want them to. So finish the work first and put everything you've got into it, and then decide, oh, maybe I won't say this part. You can always take stuff out, but it's hard to put stuff in.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Are there any more questions for Elizabeth? All right. Thank you. Thank you for your question.
Can you hear me?
Just okay. Thank you, everyone, for the great questions. And thank you once again, Elizabeth, for visiting. We just so appreciate you taking time to come see us. And just a reminder that Elizabeth's book is available here at the library as of the 27th, and also on our Libby app. You can download it, and at Lowry's Bookstore in Sturgis and Three Rivers. Let's give one more round of applause.
Well, can I say something?
Yes, definitely.
I read in the paper today a story that I'm so embarrassed that I was so ignorant about how hard independent bookstores are struggling, really, really struggling, and how, excuse me, how close so many are to going out of business. So next time you want a book, it's so tempting to get it from Amazon. They're quick. You don't have to go outside anywhere to get it, but you can also order from your independent bookstore. It might be, I don't know, $2 or $3 more or something and be mailed to you. But it's critically important that those places stay in business. I think all of us love to wander around a good bookstore. And for me, I may go to a bookstore and search for this title, but the best thing is the accidental things that I run into there. So when you're thinking about use your library, of course, but when you think about buying a book, try to get it from an independent bookseller.
Thank you. We really.
May I say something?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Mrs. Berg, Elizabeth, I read your post about the Jerry Seinfeld book, and it was hilarious. I'll be reading it as soon as I can get it. Thank you so much. That was so funny.
You know, she's talking about, I got the Jerry.
Jim out of the bedroom by giggling. I loved it.
I was reading Jerry Seinfeld's new book. It's called "Is This Anything?"
Yeah.
So, first of all, poor guy. I mean, he's trying to read the paper, and I pester him with questions, and I say, so I'm reading this Jerry Seinfeld book, and I said, you just got to hear this one. So I read this one. And then, he's trying to read his book. So he goes back to reading this book, and I'm going, finally he said, I'm going downstairs to read. But not every single entry in there is killer. How could it be? It's a big fat book. But there are so many funny things. And there's one about Halloween. I was dying. Talking about the kid in his dopey costume with the elastic that kept breaking for his mask. It doesn't sound funny, but believe me when you read it.
Okay.
You forget.
Thank you.
Well, you forget, that we're not laughing very much lately. It's almost like you get rusty for laughing.
I know.
Definitely need to laugh. That's for sure.
To just get breathless with laughter and be crying.
Good.
Elizabeth, I have a comment and a quick question. My comment is for everyone, if you don't follow her on Facebook, you're missing out because her posts are oftentimes hysterical. Oftentimes they just make you think and add a bright spot to your day. And she posts some great recipes. So what's for dinner tonight?
For me, well, since I just made a loaf of bread the size of Texas, we're gonna eat it with some cauliflower soup that I got out of a recipe called Mom's. Let's see, Mom's. Is it Mom's Cook? Mom's something. Really good recipes in there. I should have been prepared. And I'm going to make a salad out of another cookbook I just bought called Love Real Food. And it's cranberries and apple and nuts and a really nice dressing. So it's going to be cauliflower soup, kale salad, and 80 tons of bread.
I'll be there by about 6.
And then we get those little ice cream cones from Trader Joe's. Have you had those?
No.
You have Trader Joe's in your neighborhood?
Oh, we have one about 40 minutes from here.
Oh, okay. We have one right in the neighborhood, but they make these. It's called Hold the Cone, and they're about this big, just little tiny ice cream cones, and that's our little treat every night. So that's dinner.
Sounds great.
Sounds good.
Okay, we do have a couple more questions. Lisa. Oh, Sorry, you were still muted.
I just wanted to thank you for joining us today. You're one of my favorite writers by far, and I enjoy reading everything you write, if it's a Facebook post or one of your books, and I look forward to this latest book. And I just wanted to say thank you for sharing your gift, and just reminding us in your writing that we are all connected, and listening to the stories today. We all have something similar we've been through, and I want to thank you for just sharing your gift.
You're going to make me cry.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Heidi.
Okay, I have a challenge for everybody. And it will make you laugh.
Leave it to you, Heidi.
At the beginning, Elizabeth mentioned taking her dad to the neurologist, and he gave him 3 words to remember. Who remembers the 3 words?
Oh my God.
Heaven?
Finger.
Village.
That's it.
3 of us got it.
Wow, good for you.
If 3 of us stick together, you're fine.
I know we have to do it together.
That was a good idea. That's great.
Yeah, I love that.
I drove across the country with my friend Marianne, who's actually in this book. And we were trying to do that. And then we were doing the alphabet thing of all disparate words like A, avocado, B, gramophone, they had nothing to do with each other. And can you get through the whole alphabet? Remembering, that's how bored we were. No scenery, no music. We did the alphabet thing.
It sounds fun, though.
When you remember, yay! Thank you guys so much for inviting me to come this way. I really hope I can come back.
Oh, we do too.
We do too.
Look
We
forward
would
to
love
it.
that.
Bring the new
Yeah.
puppy.
Take care of yourself. And we'll all get through this. We will.
We will.
Let's give Elizabeth one more round of applause and appreciation.
I'm going to give her a hug.
A hug, a virtual hug.
Virtual hug.
We're just so thrilled to host you, Elizabeth, and so appreciative of your time.
Very happy to be here. Thank you. And thanks to all of you for coming and for sharing things and asking questions. It was great.
Wonderful. And for those out there in Facebook land, you can also view this in YouTube. If you want to pass that information on to your friends, we'd love for them to see it too. Have a wonderful day.
I'm gonna hold this up just because we refer to these Facebook postings and the so-called happy books. This is the first one. There are 3 of them, and they're available now.
Yes, and we do have those on our shelf at the library also.
Okay. Oh, good. That's what.
Yes. Yep, we definitely do.
Okay, guys, take good care. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye.